I never played in such a way that you'd say to me about Bradford was an avant-garde player. Because I never stopped making references to Louis Armstrong or Dizzy or Miles. I find that all one big body of music.
Right.
Except that it comes along at a point where we're at different levels of consciousness. And so the music you see is about. And I often said into my jazz history classes at Pasadena City College and at Pomona, the music is about this black man's experience at the time. And he can't be somebody in the music that he's not. That's how I defend the Negro spiritual. The Negro spiritual is about the Negro. But if you're not up to date on what that word implies, people are offended by it. I myself am not. You see, because on the planet in 1750, this slave is a Negro in his own eyes and in the eyes of the slave master too, to the extent that he's slowly losing Africa and assimilating, but he's bringing the African baggage with him. I don't mean baggage in a negative sense. Just based on his place on the planet Earth at the time. The songs are about, well, what is your life about now? Going from day to day, a subsistence farmer to that extent, going to heaven if I lived the right life, you see? So then, as we move through a point of finally any conscious reference to African music, it's American music, because here's this black man with a history in Africa, you see, but is now an American. Though people are fighting the idea of you calling yourself an American, you see, but Booker T. Washington was an American. Charlie Parker was an American. These slaves that created the Negro spiritual were Americans, even though people know you're not. Yeah, we are. You might not like it. But so we see the world, you see, in the eyes of who we are. So when we got to a point of Charlie Parker as a kid growing up, I knew clearly who we were in America. Just like I would say about Louis Armstrong. I'm talking to some student and he'll say, well, you know, he did a lot of grinning and a lot of stuff that was deferential to whites. I said, what would you be doing if you were born in 1900, black boy in New Orleans? What a brain and a talent like that. Working with and around white people, you have to figure out a way to navigate that, because you can't show them how smart and talented you are. You
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Louis Armstrong got a lot of heat because when he was in films, and he was always in a way, especially with white people on stage, he behaved in a way that was deferential to whites. And that's a long story to explain, but it's not like he didn't know where we came from and where we might go. He was dealing with the world that he lived in. You see, Charlie Parker comes to a point where Charlie Parker was born in 1920, 20 years later. And Parker says, I see where you're coming from there. He says, but I'm not going to do that. I'm willing to pay the price now of not being rich or famous, because I want this music to be played about who we are now without any serious attention to what money it will generate. And I'm going to make a place for myself, you see, as an American artist. Well, Louis Armstrong had to deal with several other issues. Armstrong is saying, I can see what you guys will pay me to do, and for me to move up, raise the level of my acceptance here in this country. But I never have forgotten who I am, or who runs the show, so to speak. And I had seen, Armstrong in clips and films. And I recognized that too. And it was clear to me who he was. He was a genius, right?
Yeah.
But there's only so much room, you see, in that particular place for a black genius. White people would say, I don't have anything against Negroes as long as they stay in their place. Well, where is the place for Louis Armstrong? A genius like that, a creative artist like he was. Where's his place? You see? So then you come to a Charlie Parker, Gillespie, these guys who are, it's a little clearer now about where we are in the scheme of things. And we decided now we're willing to sacrifice the fame and fortune, if you will, for the art music, willing to pay the price. We want to play an art music that's about music itself as an art. If you like the music, we're happy. If you don't like it, that's too bad. Now, you see, that's quite a stance.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, then you say, white people, just, don't stop us. You don't have to reward us, but don't knock it. It's like James Brown said, you don't have to do me any favors.
Yeah.
Just don't get in my way.
Yeah.
And when I come running by, don't stick your foot out to trip me. So we saw these guys as a totally new black man. Just the demeanor and the dress code. You know, paisley tie, button-down white Oxford shirt, pinstripe suit, right? No monkey shines on stage, no jokes, no twirling the trumpet around on your finger like that. Just pure music.
Yeah.
You get up there and play it, and you get off the stage, and you deal with it. What that meant to me was like, see, here's a new black man. Ornette Coleman comes along, and he said, well, here's an even newer black man. He said, not only am I going to do what we're doing now, he said, I'm going to play some things now that are designed to upset you. I'm going to throw boiling water out on you and make you stop and take a look at me, a real look at me. You see, and this music says the Charlie Parker umbilical cord is snip. There's no Charlie Parker in Ornette Coleman's music, not for the listener. In his bank back there, sure enough. But after he recorded Free Jazz on Atlantic, he said, you have to look at me now in a new light. Not only in just my music, but as a black man who's in the arena now. So when you talk about Picasso, it's not his words now. You can talk about Ornette Coleman. Now you see, that separates him from a lot of the other artists to the extent that, and I remember this very clearly, Ornette Coleman knew who he was early on. You see, talking about Charlie Parker once and some of Charlie Parker's tunes, Ornette said in a way like, he wrote some wonderful tunes. And he's trying to say, but what about mine? Now you see, at that point, it was clear to me that Ornette was saying, I can sit at the table with Charlie Parker. And I knew at that same time, I could not. It's clear to him what he had to say. He just needed the opportunity to do it. But he had to deal with, you see, his life every day, working as a stock boy someplace and playing in places where the bartender would say, don't play anymore that music. I played in clubs where the bartender would look over at us and go like this. Don't play any of that anymore. And Ornette got all kinds of heat like that in Los Angeles, you see.